places like Oklahoma, Kansas, and into Texas and those states, and also going over to the western portion of the United States, California, Oregon, Washington State, and sometimes we forget about Alaska and Hawaii, of course. That is the 50 states that make up the United States there for you, the entire area. Indeed, Canada borders the United States, and sometimes we overlook Canada, but we're not going to do that this afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you up there in Canada who are tuned in at this time. I want to say good afternoon, especially to some of the folks who I know who are there. For example, Charlene Huggins and Beverly. You said you normally would listen. I was going to say Hugh Jeffers and Mrs. Jeffers, but they're here on the island, so I wouldn't say they're in Canada at this time. They're home enjoying the lovely weather outside, because it's beautiful outside, nice and warm. Indeed, we still continue to pray for some rain though, but it's nice and warm outside. Of course, the whole of Canada that goes all across to Saskatchewan. Go and take up a map, it's right there. And then come out of Canada and go up to Europe, the United Kingdom. We have quite a number of nationals there, and indeed throughout the whole of Europe, Germany and Italy, France. Boy, we are all over the world, and also into Asia as well, Japan, the Republic of China, Taiwan. We have persons, students and persons living there. So welcome to one and all, and indeed we are happy that you have tuned in this afternoon to be a part of this program. Okay, good. So that is paying ultimate respect to all of the listeners, and we have to do that. We would fall short if we don't do that on a Friday. Normally we start the show with greetings and also expressing condolences. So I just want to start by expressing condolences to the Eaton family over there in Madden's area. Over about 10 days ago, we would have lost Mrs. Bernice Eaton. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, of course, I'm paying my respect, but also I want to say something about her, because she has been someone who has played an integral part in that area in Madden's, and more so in the St. James community, Butler's Brick Hill, to be more exact. But if I were to pay homage to Mrs. Eaton this afternoon, I will say to you that I got to know Miss Eaton, or Mrs. Eaton, somewhere around 1979, and that year is significant because that is when the St. James School, the brand new school, was open. I'll touch on that shortly, but let me stick with Mrs. Eaton because she was a member of the St. James Anglican Church from the time I knew myself as a little boy coming up. And indeed, I want to say to Mr. Eaton, James Eaton, that is, her husband, accept my condolences, and of course the entire family, including Heather, who is a nurse, Sandra, Inga, also Jasmine, who was a classmate of mine way back then, and indeed you have James and Jevon Eaton. Yeah, those are their children. Of course, they have grandchildren as well too, and all of them are affected at this point in time. But let me go back and say why I brought up Mrs. Eaton, and also want to pay homage to her, because like I said, when the school opened there, St. James Primary School that is, she was like the protector of that school, the guardian of that school, the security officer of that school, she and her family, because of course at the end of the day the keys for that entire school was left with her, or left in their possession in terms of her caretaking. And then of course when school started the next day, that's where the keys were collected from. Newcastle Police Station, of course, is some distance away. There are other schools here on the island of Nevis who are closer to an institution like that, let's say a police station or some other government institution that would have kept those keys, but they were left with Mrs. Eaton and her family. She was also someone who made certain items such as sugar cake, frozen joy, the things that young people were brought upon, and the things that we used to love, the sugar, the sugar that we enjoy then, not so much now, but the sugar we enjoyed when we were young, because you would go out on the play field and run that off, all of those calories, I should say. But Mrs. Eaton is someone who we would have loved and cherished, very quiet, unassuming, But when she start to speak, you say, oh my goodness, I didn't realize Mrs. Eaton had so much chat. But you know, Mrs. Eaton will be missed by her family and the community at large. I'm not so sure when the funeral service will be held, but of course it will be at the St. James Anglican Church, I do believe, and at some point we'll hear the final details of that, so we can go out and pay our last respects to Mrs. Eaton and be there to support the family as well. But Mrs. Eaton, I will just say, may her soul rest in peace, but she has done her tour of duty, she has contributed, and indeed her time has come, and we just pray for God's divine intervention and protection of the family, or the surviving family as well. So Mrs. Eaton, she was a part of St. James Primary School, not as a teacher but as a caretaker and someone who was a remarkable figure and a remarkable influence on the young children. As I was then, young child, young boy, she was that kind of influence, and I thank her for her influences and her efforts. So if there are anyone else who are in the bereaved column at this point in time, I express my condolences to you and your family, and indeed well, Lord knows best, and the Lord will provide all of the guidance and protection that is needed at this time to ensure that you can overcome these challenges and go through these difficult times. The song says Jesus comes in the midst of the storm to protect or deliver his children from harm and danger and difficulties. Yeah, okay, so continue to believe. On a more happier note, persons out there are celebrating today. I am certain about that, but you know the interesting thing, I don't have any names of persons who are celebrating. But if you're celebrating an anniversary or a birthday, whatever it is, I know my good friend Hilary Jeffers, Hiller, you all know Hiller, should have had a birthday sometime during this past week. I know she went up for her blessings there at church on Sunday, so somewhere along the line she had a birthday sometime during the week, and whatever celebration she would have had, I know she might have had a good time, a very good time, I'm sure. I saw a couple of days ago and she was smiling and looking jolly as ever, so she would have had a wonderful time. But Hiller, may God bless you and may you live to see many more, and all of you who are celebrating, may you live to see many more wonderful birthdays. Before I go into the meat of the show, I want to just touch on something, because we're trying to enhance the beauty of the island of Nevis in many ways, in terms of the infrastructural development, of course, in terms of roads and painting up all of those safety barriers around the island. We are trying to do our best to ensure that once persons come to the island, they get that first impression, because you always hear first, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So we have done some enhancement throughout the parish of St. James, painting up those bridges and barricades and so forth, and I'm sure that would continue throughout the island of Nevis. The reason why I bring this up, though, I was driving through the New River Marty Bottom area, and we would have done some nice repainting of those bridges and barricades or protective you know, slabs that have been built at the side of the road, yellow and white. If you drive through the whole of St. James from New River all the way down here to Jones Estate by Miss June area, you'll see the enhancement that was done. That was some painting that was done by my good friend there, Baki. They call him Baki nickname, but that's Honourable Jeffers, and also Damien Hicks. They took on a challenge and they painted all of those barriers, and I want to thank them for that. What was not so pleasing, though, is the fact that I drove through the Marty Bottom area, and some devious person would have gone ahead and defaced those bridges that were looking so nice, painted some message on them, and I want to say to whoever would have done that, that was not a nice thing to do. And that is not reflective of the type of society that we want to create here on the island of Nevis, and the beauty that we want to continue to move towards in terms of ensuring that people drive through the island and feel good about this island. I'm not too pleased about it, but I wouldn't dwell on it, but I want to just issue this advice or this admonition to all of our people. Let's take care of our island. Take care of the island of Nevis. Nevis is what we have, and we boast about this being one of the most beautiful islands, one of the most pristine, one of the friendliest, the nicest, wherever. I always say that Nevis is the closest thing to paradise, the nearest thing to heaven. And I do believe that. And so when you see these things happening, it really bothers you to a large extent. And so that is the case. We'll have to find some paint to repaint those surfaces to ensure that we remove those unsightly markings. And I would want to encourage our people, please refrain from defacing any properties here on the island of Nevis, because once monies are spent on these enhancements, then you don't want to go over it again. While I'm saying that as well, I come down to a potwork area that is just in the vicinity of the bakery over there. I think it's called LBW, Lord Brand has a bakery there. And just across from it, there are some yellow and white barricades there. They are meant to protect drivers or prevent drivers from going over into the gut that is next door. Now, someone would have come through there, had an accident, of course, and destroy some of those bulliards, you call them, and created some damage there, well, some time ago. I don't know who did it, and I don't want to even get into who did it. All I want to get into is whoever did it, please, I would advise you to go and get the repairs done. Why I say that? Those protection railings or pipes or whatever they are, bulliards, were there before the accident took place, and that would have prevented you from entering into the gut. It saved your life. Now, with them being damaged now, you have this gaping area where if another driver come along and it so happened that they encounter an accident, they would then end up in the gut. So you are alive and well now. Those or that person would have created that damage or those damages. So the person who comes after and encounter an accident in the area, they would end up in the gut. Might very well lose their life. So I don't think whoever did that or whoever had the unfortunate accident would want that to happen to anyone else. So I will say to whoever would have done that, please find the resources and go and repair the work that was, well, the work that was destroyed, because they were painted and enhanced so that they can be seen even in the darkest of night. So be your brother's keeper, be your sister's keeper, and please, whoever would have encountered that accident, please go on and get the repairs done. And all up and down St. James, you see these broken down bulliards that people would have had accidents, and many the person who was involved know that they are the culprit. And I will say, listen, if you have insurance, you go to the insurance and you include that in whatever estimates and whatever estimates and expenses that were incurred in the accident. If not, you know, if there's some way you can get some help, get it done, because we want to keep this island as safe for everyone, not just yourself, but for everyone who would come along and maybe encounter any difficulty. So I just thought I'll mention those in passing, because they're very obvious. And it is not a nice thing at all when these are these safety bridges and areas are destroyed, because it means then that someone else will suffer a more difficult situation that you may have encountered. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I think the message has been conveyed, and I'll leave it as that for now. Hopefully we'll see the repairs being done in short order. At the end of each month, I would come here and give the general public some data as to the movement of passengers over there at the Oale Water Taxi facility. You know, I talk glowingly about that particular facility. You always hear from the other side, and some persons are saying, oh, it's not finished yet. And when there's some rain, people get wet, or there's some water that settles over there. You know, these are the things that happen from time to time. Human nature, or the weather patterns. Sometimes you can't mitigate against some of these challenges. For example, last week it was very windy, and then you had these situation or these occasions on which, you know, you had sand being blown all over the place out there. These are things that you generally cannot prevent, but we are moving towards the completion of the building over there. I would want to just say here and now that we are moving at a rapid pace to get that building completed, and perhaps, as I said before, we're moving towards getting it, at least even if it's a soft opening, by the end of February. The seating that were ordered, I believe they should be here, if not this week, by next week. So at least that is a good thing. And then there's some bits and pieces to tie up here and there. There's some tiling being done of the porch area, and I think that should be completed either by today or tomorrow. Then a new coat of paint will be placed on that what do you call it, porch, and then the barricades will come down, landscaping will be done, and all those amenities will be put in place so that we can have a beautiful structure being displayed to the division public, and that building perform the task and they perform the things that it is meant to perform, and that is to house the NASPER workers, also the ticket booths for some of the boat operators. But anyway, all that will be explained as we go along over the next couple of weeks. But I brought up the Wally water taxi facility because the data is always important to keep track of and to update the public on, because I do believe that these are saying something to us. A message is conveyed that things are happening over there, people are using this service, and there are always opportunities that are created every single day when persons or passengers move back and forth. So the data that I was given for January 2024, at the end of January there was passenger movement. There were passenger movements over there of 24,197 passengers, and it was broken down this way. 11,926 persons would have left Reggae Beach or other places to come into that facility, and then of course 12,271 persons would have left Wally water taxi facility and gone to Reggae Beach, Park Hyatt, Christopher Harbour, even down into Bass itself, you know, the marine over there. But that was the movement, those are the movements for 2024 January. 24,197 passengers would have used that facility in and out. Now let's do some comparison, because it's always good to compare data. The same way we compare data in farming to say what our production was 2023 as against 2024 January, or even 2022 for the entire year as against 2023. Those are important to see what trends there are out there and where you're headed. In terms of 2023 January, that is, we had a total of 19,767 passengers who would have used that facility, with 10,132 coming into the facility and 9,635 going out. So those are some significant numbers, and you've had an increase. That's what a little over 5,000 persons in terms of passengers increase over that period of time. I have my calculator here, so I can do a quick calculation. I should have done this before, but anyway, 767. Yeah, about 4,430 persons. I thought it was about 5,000, but anyway, closer to 5 than 0. So 4,430 persons, or passengers. I need to be clear about that, passengers, because why I am not saying persons is because the same person can leave and go to Reggae Beach, and the same person come back. That is one person. But in terms of that person being a passenger going, that is one, and then when he or she comes back, it's a passenger again. So we use the term passengers. So that is phenomenal, and that is really a good thing, and I want to encourage all of the workers to continue to offer optimum service over there. Take care of your guests, take care of all who come through that facility, because the experience they have there will determine if and when they come back, and you always want to maintain that flow, because revenue is generated, you receive a salary, the boat owners will make their money, NASPA will get some taxes collected, and indeed all of the ancillary services that depend on those boats for purchases, whether it's, you know, things like fuel and parts and all of the other businesses out there that capitalize on this particular facility. All of them are depending on the movements out there in order to ensure that we can collect revenue on all fronts. I also want to say that we see a number of persons coming through there as well from the various cruise ships on St. Kitts on a given day. And that is also a plus as well, because those visitors, we have to show them our best face, quote unquote, as the persons will say out there. Put on our best behavior, and not only to them, but I'm singling them out, because everyone requires the best service being offered to them. But I would want to think that our visitors are equally as important as anyone else, because we depend on them to go and come and be repeat customers or repeat visitors or repeat well, call it visitors, yes, because they don't live here. So we want them to come back, and the service we offer to them will determine whether they choose to come back to this destination or not. Some come on the cruise ship, yes, and even though the cruise ship is docked in St. Kitts, they come over to Nevis, and the impression that is created when they come here, their next trip would be to Nevis instead. Yeah, and that is what we are seeking to do. Offer them the best service, so when they choose their destination for next year, they'll say, I went to Nevis and I had a wonderful time. The people there are so friendly, the people there are so welcoming, and I want to go back there and spend a week, because the few hours I spent there was not enough to explore the entire island and to partake in all of the amenities being offered there on the island of Nevis. So they're coming back. And you know, we didn't necessarily spend any money for that person. You know, that person determined that they're coming back to Nevis because things were so nice. They had to come back twice, and they'll come back a third time, fourth time, once we continue to offer excellent service. Okay, on to something else. Earlier this week, I attended the church service over there at the Manning's Seventh-day Adventist Church, which was put on by the St. James Primary School. I said I was going to come back to this matter, because the St. James Primary School is celebrating their 45th anniversary, and that is since the construction of that school. It was built in 1978 and opened in 1979, September to be more precise, of 1979. And I will say that I was one of the first students then to go into that school. I went into grade 5, I believe it was. My teacher then was this gentleman over there in Butler's, friend of mine, Mr. Ezra Charles. Indeed, we got there and the gates were open to welcome all of almost 100 or more of us. Those days the rolls were large, because I believe my class then had in excess of 20 students. But we were welcomed by the head teacher, principal from the old Whitehall School, Mr. Franklin Brown. So we were marched into this new school, and you see it over there nicely painted with a light blue color now. Those walls were not painted then, the exterior walls. The type of finish, rough finish that is there, it was just left with a natural look. But anyway, be that as it may, we got there, and it was, you know, refreshing. Why? Because down at the old Whitehall School, you know, everyone was in one particular space, one big building, and every class was in that particular confine. So from kindergarten all the way up to grade 10, it was an all-age school then, and to some extent up at the St. James School until that was abandoned. But anyway, all of us were in one particular space down there at the old Whitehall School. So if someone cried over in kindergarten, they would disturb grade 10. If someone got lashes down in grade 4, up at grade 10 they would hear all of the lashes being administered. If someone said something that they shouldn't say, the whole school will hear. So it was fun, I will say that, and we learned our lessons, as the old people would say. But it was that space that, you know, was eliminated with this school, because each class, so to speak, would have had their own confined space. Kindergarten, grade 1, and some extent to some extent 2 classes were in one room, but at least it was an improvement over what we experienced down at the old Whitehall School. So we went up there in September of 1979, and indeed, like I said, the all-age school was transferred over there, but after some time it was abandoned, and the school became just a school from kindergarten up to grade 6. Be that as it may, it was a wonderful time up there at the St. James Primary School. And like I said, Franklin Brown, Mr. Franklin Brown was the first principal, the first head teacher, however you want to put it. He was the one who managed that school at that point in time. In fact, there were about, well, up to this current head teacher, about 8 head teachers. I can recall Mr. Franklin Brown, yes, he's the first. Then you had Mr. Frank Morton, and after Mr. Frank Morton, I believe it was Mrs. Eileen Walwyn, and then thereafter, I believe it was Mr. Carl Williams. After Carl Williams came Miss Vertilly Perkins. I hope I have that correctly said. And then after Miss Perkins, then you had Mrs. Janice Whitaker Richards. Janice is now over here at the Ivor Walters Primary School, and then thereafter we had Danielle Wallace. She's now up at the Education Department, and then of course currently we have Miss Catherine Seabrooks Wilkinson. She's now the current principal there. So we've had a number of teachers. As a matter of fact, based on the number I heard, is in excess of 100 teachers who would have gone through that institution, and I will say proudly that I was one of them. So I left the school and I came back as a teacher in 1988, September of 1988, and I always say gleefully that I was so happy to get that job, because back then the competition was tight, but being the person closest to the school, I was asked to go there the second day of that term. So the first day I got the call, the second day I was up there in my nice dandan, as they said. And I want to thank Mr. Perlivan Wilkin. I believe he was a junior education officer at that time. He was the one who made the call to me, and I received that call, and he said to go up to the St. James Primary School tomorrow morning. So that my teaching exploits and journey started then. It lasted for just about 2 years, because by January 1991 I was no longer a teacher. But anyway, when I got there the first day of teaching, I was welcomed by, of course, Mrs. Eileen Walwyn, who was the head teacher then. And indeed I recall Miss Celia Johnson. She's now Mrs. Celia Johnson Archibald. And of course Palsy Brandy. She's now Mrs. Palsy Brandy Wilkin. And also Gail Mills was there, and the only other male teacher that was there at that time, now deceased, Mr. Cecil Sutton. And I can't recall who else was there, but if anyone else was there, I apologize, but I recall those persons who would have welcomed me and gave me all of the assurances that all will be well. And for the time being, it was good. But I have always said to many of my peers and many persons that I don't think I was, born to be a teacher. There's some people who are born to be certain things, as they say it. But I believe my exploits would have always been in business and out there on the street, hustling and moving back and forth and being active. But to be confined to the same environment, there's some persons who are just meant to be in that area. And I want to commend all who have taken on teaching as their main profession. You are doing a wonderful job in that regard. So I went there, and there were some shortcomings then, of course. These days, you have landscapers, you have caretakers of the premises and so forth. Back then, there were no landscapers to cut the grass and the likes. So the school would have bought a lawnmower, and Mr. Cecil Sutton and I were the ones who went and cut the grass every now and then when you have needs to do so. So at 10:15 in the morning, when we had that mid-morning break, I would go out and cut. After lunch, then Mr. Sutton might put in a couple minutes, and then when we get that break mid-afternoon, I would go out and cut. So we brought along a t-shirt to school, and we went out and we cut. It was going above and beyond. But it was a part of our duty then to take care of the surroundings. Well, like I said, these days things are much different, where you have persons who are paid to go out and do these things. Back then as well too, I was the coach of the youngsters who played cricket and football, and some of the exploits that you're seeing these days when the St. James Primary School have succeeded at the primary football competition and cricket and so forth. We would have had some guys who, generally speaking, were talented then and did the school proud. I remember going to the finals of the primary school football tournament with some young persons like Amoy Nisbet, Mikey Johnson, people like Tamai Sutton, and all those young fellows out there who are between the age of maybe 38 and 44 or 43 thereabout. They were around during those times when I was there, and you know, it was a challenge then. I'm gonna say it here on the radio because I said it on Wednesday. I said that I do not think I was meant to be a teacher, but there are certain things that would have pushed me out of teaching too, and this is by way of being humorous, really. Back in 1990, I got myself a Suzuki Samurai, you know. I believe that was the second one of that type that would have come to Nevis. I got it from St. Thomas, yeah. My uncle over there at Caribbean Post and my mom would have bought it for me, and I thank them for that. But that was my first vehicle way back in 1990, July of 1990. So when it came, I got up to school with this Jeep, you know. Drove into the schoolyard, excited that I have a new Jeep. Well, it wasn't new to me, but it was a used Jeep. But I drove into the yard there, and as soon as I drove in, you know, one of the youngsters blurted out, "Oh my goodness, Zook in his Suzuki." And every day when I go and come, that is what I hear when I go into the schoolyard. You know, these are young people who grew up in the same community that I grew up in. So, you know, that's my name. That has been my name from God knows when, ever since I know myself. So, you know, every day you hear this, and it came to the point where I said, listen, you know, this is not right. You know, these guys are not, you know, I'm not seeing any end to it. So I said, you know, let's move on if the opportunity comes. The opportunity came in January of 1991, sorry, January 1991. That's when I moved out and went to TDC. By moving out, though, I created a space for someone else who wanted to be a teacher. And of course, I went on to do other things. And that was a move that I have never regretted, because that is what I wanted to do. And if one can recall the exploits down there, TDC Rentals, I know I left an excellent name behind based on the service that I used to offer and the awards that I would have gotten then. But anyway, that was just, you know, drifting away from the St. James Primary School. So throughout this year, and I'm spending some time because I was expecting the principal here, but of course they have other activities taking place over there at the school, meaning they had a relay this morning, and they're now preparing for sports meet and so forth. So I apologize on her behalf, but I want us to support, because those of you who would have passed through those doors up there at St. James Primary School, you are part of the network of alumni who would have passed through there. And let me tell you, there are persons right now throughout the world, wherever you are, in the United States, Canada, in Europe somewhere, here in the Federation, you would have gotten your initial foundation right there up there at the St. James Primary School. And indeed, that school would have produced persons who are now doctors, lawyers, well, politicians, well, also contractors, and you know, teachers, of course. Persons in all professions are out there who can point to St. James Primary School, point to the work and the efforts of the teachers who would have influenced them over the years. And indeed, they can look towards that as the where they were shaped and molded into what they are today. And I'm sure they're thankful of that. So to show your thanks and to reciprocate the effort of the teachers and the teaching you would have gotten at that school, keep in mind that these activities will go on throughout this year. And if there's any way you can contribute to the school, anything you can do, whether you want to go up and paint up, whether you want to go up and plant a tree, whether you want to go up and do something contribute to the school, bearing in mind that that school was good to you, and so you want to reciprocate and be good to that school as well, because it will be around for a long time. And as I say that, I'm going to play a little bit of politics, because I remember in 2013 the plans were afoot to shut that school down, because they claimed that the role was too small, and all sorts of things were being said. Like a voice in the wilderness, I said, no, it can't happen. Let us do the things that will ensure that the school has some sustainability in terms of what can we do? What can be done to ensure? Back then we understood that persons who should have been going to that school, children who should have been going to that school, were going to other schools throughout the island of Nevis. So there is something they call, what they call it now, there is a term that is used where persons should stay in their zone or in the area where they live and go to the school in that area, but that was perhaps not being adhered to, so persons were going to all parts of Nevis and the school was suffering. One of the things that I will say, based on the policy that was adopted by the Nevis Island administration, was to start the new housing development down there at Cedar Grove, and also expanded on the existing one that is there next to the school, which is called Sunrise Housing Development. So by doing that, we would have gotten some extra students for that school, and that is by way of a government doing something to ensure that you don't go down the road where you shut down a school or close a school with no plans in place. And that was my question all along. What will become of the building if you close it? So instead of that, we went about building those housing communities over there and asking persons to stay in their zone, contribute to the school, build the school, and make sure that St. James can have a vibrant primary school out there in St. James, along with the one down there at Combermere as well. So that being said, we'll leave that, but we'll listen up for more activities that will be held by the school throughout this year. And I ask once again for persons to go out and support these activities, because it is your school, and indeed if you contribute to the school, it would ensure that it continue to be sustainable, and it continue to be viable, and continue to play the part that it has played over the last 45 years and counting. So congratulations to everyone, and let's go on out and lend our support. Culturama. Last week I touched on Culturama, and every week, like I said, we'll speak about Culturama, because I don't know if people are realizing, because one of the things that came to my thought this morning is that January is finished. We're now into February. Lots of activities are going to take place in February in terms of school sports throughout the entire island of Nevis. And then of course you get into March, then into April, then you're into June and July. God's willing, we're going to get there at a clip. So we have to be planning, we have to be ensuring that the message gets out, and ensuring that persons who are planning on coming will know that we are rolling out the red carpet for you for Culturama 50. This is the 50th anniversary of Culturama. And so the NIA, the government, the cabinet of the Nevis Island administration would have offered some incentives to all the citizens here on the island of Nevis, all homeowners. And even if you live in the United States and have a home here in Nevis, or property here in Nevis, it is also for you to take advantage of. Even if you live in Europe, the same thing. Yeah, if you don't live here and have a property here, you can also take part or take advantage of these incentives. And recall that we were saying last week, and the Premier would have said it, some bulletin out there as well too, where persons who are interested in enhancing their property, whether it is a business, a private home, residential place, meaning guest house or a hotel, for example, there are some incentives available to you, in that you can apply for the waiver of custom duties and custom service charge at the Ministry of Finance if you intend to do a driveway, if you intend to do a walkway, fence your property, paint up your property, if you intend to do some repairs to your roof, whatever you intend to do to your private home to enhance it for the upcoming 50th anniversary of Culturama. Make it your business to go down to the Ministry of Finance to apply for these incentives. Indeed, the 17% VAT will be paid by you. That is not a part of the package. It will be paid by you, but you'll get the custom service charge waived and also your custom duties waived. So I want you to take advantage. Now, there are persons out there, when good news are available and good things are available to you, the Nivision public, they won't tell you about it because, you know, they're already priming up and setting up to go in and benefit themselves. But they will not be putting these positive things out there for you to take advantage of. So that is why it is incumbent upon persons like myself, persons like the Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, and the ministers who are there, and anyone else who have the information, to pass it on to those who are not familiar and to tell them where to go to get the information and to get the application done. So I'm saying to you, take advantage. When your government is offering something, take advantage of it. Like I said last week, you may not have the cash available. Well, go in and speak to your bank. It will be one of the best loans that you'll take. But if you have the cash, well, you spend it the same way. But enhance your property. When people come to Nevis during the summer for Culturama 2024, the 50th anniversary, they must, when they come off of the pier out there at Wally and they take a drive towards Newcastle and beyond, or they take a drive into Charlestown, they must be saying wow all along. And you know what they'll say too? But this is not the Nevis I hear the naysayers and the negative speakers out there talking about. They will say this is completely different to what I've been hearing about. And that is true. Because you see, negative vibes and negative narratives tend to grow root out there, you know, when in truth and in fact that is not the case. But I'm here to say to you that this package that is being offered to our homeowners, our residents, residential properties, churches, commercial buildings, whatever it is, all of you should take advantage and make sure that you are enhancing your property and making it look good. Not only for Culturama but beyond, because you might have been thinking about these repairs for a long time and you're wondering, well, where will I get the money? Where will I get it? How could I get it done? But there is a way for you to do so now, and I encourage you to do so. So the Ministry of Finance is where you'll go for that. And also I want to also say that there is a homestay initiative that you need to go to the Ministry of Tourism to get more information on that. That is, it was explained by the Premier recently. And if, for example, you are not familiar with it, then of course you want to go back to the presentation that the Premier may have made, or you can go to the Ministry of Tourism and they will explain to you, they will give you the necessary application forms, because there are some things that you need to do, which I cannot go into all of it now because I don't want to give partial information, but I know it's available so that persons can stay at your property. And of course there are certain requirements that you'll have to meet and certain conditions. So all of those will be explained to you, but you can also have some revenue out of it as well. So that is the most important thing. That is key. So you fix up your property, nice it up, spruce it up, as they say, and then you can make back some money. Well, I don't think you'll be able to make back all, but you can make back something. But you can also offer that Nivision stay to persons who intend to come home for Culturama. So go to the Ministry of Tourism for that. I cannot explain everything when I come here every Friday, so that I'll leave for you to take advantage of. It is there for you to do so. So that's the homestay initiative. And of course, as I walk the street and traverse the whole of Nevis, people have been asking me if we're having Herbert Beach this year. Well, I say it again, this is what, and this is what, this is the truth, this is what I said to the person who asked me, one of those persons. Have you ever experienced a Culturama in Nevis for the last 27 days, 27 years, sorry, and you have not seen a Herbert Beach affair being held? I'm going to say it again to the person who I spoke to. I said to him, have you experienced a Culturama on the island of Nevis for the last 27 years and have not seen or heard or been a part of a Herbert Beach affair? The person said no. Well, I said to him, well, that's your answer. So you're going to experience Herbert Beach affair again this year. And we're going to take it to another level this year. You're going to come there, you're going to have your lunch, you're going to have your dinner, and you're going to come for breakfast too. Everything. And if you want some exercise, meaning some aerobics, All of that will be a part of it. We are planning something big for Culturama this year, Herbert Beach Affair that is. And we're going to have a homecoming as well, event. So Herbert Beach Affair and the homecoming event will be a part of all this. Remember, we were the one who coined this homecoming, whatever I say, this homecoming affair, you know. We are the ones who coined it, and we're going to take it to another level out there. So Herbert Beach Affair is well and truly on. So those who are wondering, I'm saying it here now, and I'll say it again over and over again, because the plans are already, afoot to have that done. So that being said, we're running out of time today, but I spent some time on certain things that are important. And it's not every day we come here, we talk politics, or we get into some of the things that are trivial to some extent. It is also a program where we disseminate information. It is also a program where, at least while you're eating your lunch, you can have information being imparted while you're having a delicious lunch. And that is why we come here and keep coming. Now, in terms of the airport, yes, I wanted to say to you this afternoon that plans are well and truly on. And someone met me earlier in the week and asked me about the airport. I tell her, listen, not because you don't hear anything at this point in time. The plans are ongoing, the design is being done, and all of the work that are being done behind the scenes, the persons who we would have contracted to be our consultants and designers are doing their work. And as such, anytime around the latter part of this quarter, we'll be rolling out some more information to the general public. But keep in mind that I have said before, and I keep saying this, that those who would have protested against the airport, because some people went up there to protest, I believe they're in the NRP, whoever they were, protested against the airport and telling people don't sell us their property and how it's a waste of time, whatever they were saying. I don't even listen to them, because the bottom line is Nevis will never ever realize its true potential and its true level of development without a vibrant airport out there once again. I have said to the people of Nevis, and I keep saying it, that the way people travel these days, people don't want to go around South Africa, to the Gulf of Mexico, or wherever, to the Panama Canal to get to Nevis. If they want to come to Nevis and they're leaving the United States, they want to leave there and come directly to Nevis. So they're moving from point A to point B. They don't want to leave from point A to go to point C to point D to get to point B. And that is where people are traveling these days. The ease of travel must be there. And I looked at a situation the other day where, Jamaica, for example, larger than we are, but you have the option of going into Kingston, into Montego Bay. Now I see the same American Eagle that we are trying to attract is now going into the north of a parish called St. Mary's. I don't even know if it's in the north, but it's in the country areas. And they have opened up that gateway so persons can travel into St. Mary's instead of coming into Kingston, which is miles away. They're making it convenient to get their people where they want to get them to. By the same token, you go down there to St. Martin, for example, for years, and it still happens now, that you have St. Martin, which is in close proximity to Anguilla. For years, persons were traveling into St. Martin and still do, like I said, but you think Anguilla stayed at that? They went and they attracted the same American Eagle to bring passengers directly into Anguilla. Why? They want to make sure it's convenient. Here's the thing. If somebody is booking a flight to Nevis, for example, and they're going to book to go into St. Kitts, of course, nothing is wrong with that. But when they realize that they have to a further journey to go on a boat or whatever the case might be, you know what else tell themselves? Okay, I'll stay in St. Kitts. The same way with St. Martin. If persons come into St. Martin and are going to Anguilla, perhaps some of them will just tell themselves, well, listen, I'm staying in St. Martin. And so Anguilla would have done the right thing, and so we're doing the right thing in terms of getting our infrastructure built up to the point where we can get all of the private and business jets coming in here. The American Eagle, of course, that is an aircraft type that is being demanded and purchased by all of the airlines in the United States. It's one of those aircraft that is used for, trips similar to what you'll find between, let's say, Miami and Nevis, or even Charlotte and Nevis. But those aircraft can travel up to 3,000 plus nautical miles. So this is nothing for them to come to. The same way you have another aircraft, the Airbus 220, 100 series, all that type of aircraft I'm sure will be able to land there when the time comes as well. So when we roll out the plans for the airport in terms of the extension and what we're hoping to accomplish, then the Nivision public will be much more informed and understand the level of development that we're seeking to bring over there to the Van Samre International Airport. I'll go one step further and say that the Concerned Citizens Movement in government is the only party that would actually bring that development to Van Samre International Airport. Why? The evidence is very clear. Because the NRP has said that unless the name change on that facility, they'll never develop that airport. The campaign and said it. They put it a different way, but I put it the way that I know best it is said by them. They said that unless the name change, the airport will never be developed. It's the same token. They'll never touch it because who is going to go out there and change the name? I don't know who. The name is already there. If there's a need to change it, somebody would want to take it on if they want, but I don't even know if a name can attract passengers or not. I don't think so. The bottom line is passengers will come, aircraft will come first of all and bring passengers because the infrastructure is there to support the airlift or the planes that are coming in. So like we said before, we are extending the runway, improving the lighting system, improving the navigational system, building a hangar, increase parking areas, fuel farm, and all of the amenities to support a new and refurbished Van Samre International Airport, including the expansion of the terminal and also the reconstruction of a new fire hall, also the improvements to be made to the tower, the control tower. So we are seeking to enhance that facility so that it is good to go for the next 20, 30 years and beyond, because we can never be a progressive island without a vibrant airport. Yes? And even though the water taxi facility is down there, that would still have its role to play. But also the Van Samre International Airport will also have its role to play. The more the merrier. If you have options to get to Nevis, you use all the options that are available to you. But it must not be one-dimensional in any way. Because if it is one-dimensional, you'll have persons who will tell themselves one day, well, I can't go through that. I am going elsewhere. And that is what we don't want to happen. We want to ensure that a tourism product that we boast so much about is supported by access to the island and is supported by the facilities that will make sure that persons want to come. Quickly before I go, I understand that the new the master voters list is out, and there was a statement by the supervisor of elections that persons should check the list to make sure their names are there, or their name is there. Names, yes, because some people have more than one name, of course, many names. The names are there, and of course you're where you should be. We don't want the situation where in the past you had all kind of confusion here on the island of Nevis, where people were unceremoniously removed from the voters list until they were told they can't vote because somebody decided that you're not going to vote. We want everybody to vote, but we want you to be where you currently reside. Vote where you live. And so if you are if you have moved, then you'll want to go in and make the necessary changes, application that is, to change your vote from where you were to where you are.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
And you were just listening to a repeat edition of the On Point program that was first aired on Friday, February 2nd, 2024.
You're listening to Vaughan Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.